Please like and subscribe to the channel if you find this video interesting. Enjoy watching the video. Ethan, at 21, was a creature of habit and quiet aspiration. His days were a predictable rhythm: morning classes, a part-time job at the campus bookstore, evenings spent either buried in textbooks or, more often, lost in the digital world. It was in this latter realm that his singular obsession resided: Serafina. Serafina was not just a name, it was a phenomenon. On various social media platforms, she reigned supreme, a beacon of effortless style, wit, and an undeniable charisma that drew millions. Her photos, always artfully composed, depicted a life of glamour, travel, and seemingly endless joy. She was an influencer, a trendsetter, a digital queen, and to Ethan, she was everything he wasn't: confident, outgoing, and utterly captivating. He followed her every post, every story, every fleeting glimpse into her meticulously curated world. He knew her favorite coffee order: a triple-shot oat milk latte, no sugar; her preferred vacation spots, anywhere with turquoise water and palm trees; and even the names of her two ridiculously fluffy Persian cats, Puff and Muffin. He wasn't a stan in the aggressive sense. Rather, he was an admirer, a silent observer, projecting onto her a life he secretly craved. He imagined her days were a constant stream of exciting opportunities, dazzling events, and meaningful connections. Compared to his own rather mundane existence, Serafina's life seemed like a vibrant, technicolor dream. If only, he often mused to his reflection in the bathroom mirror, if only I could just experience her life for a day. See what it's truly like. Feel that confidence, that spark. It was a harmless fantasy, a whimsical thought he'd entertain before returning to the more pressing realities of his calculus homework. Meanwhile, across town, in a penthouse apartment that screamed aspirational living, Serafina Thorne was having a truly terrible Tuesday. The perfect angles and radiant smiles she presented to her legions of followers were a carefully constructed facade. Behind the glowing screens, Serafina was exhausted. The pressure to constantly create content, to always look flawless, to maintain an image of effortless perfection was relentless. Her glamorous travel often involved rushed flights, uncomfortable hotel rooms, and endless photo shoots under harsh lights, all while battling jet lag and the looming deadline for her next brand collaboration. Her meaningful connections were often superficial interactions with other influencers, agents, and brand representatives, all vying for their slice of the digital pie. Even her beloved cats, Puff and Muffin, seemed to demand more attention than she had to give. Today's crisis involved a sponsored post gone wrong. A luxury skincare brand had sent her a product, and in her haste, she'd accidentally posted a story showing the competitor's product prominently in the background. Her manager, Brenda, a woman whose voice could curdle milk over the phone, had just finished tearing her a new one. "Serafina, do you have any idea how much this could cost us?" Brenda's voice crackled through the phone, sharp and unforgiving. "This isn't some amateur hour. You represent a brand, my brand. Get it together." Serafina slumped onto her plush velvet sofa, staring at the panoramic city view she rarely had time to truly appreciate. She had everything everyone else seemed to want: fame, fortune, beauty, yet she felt utterly hollow. She longed for a day where she didn't have to think about hashtags, engagement rates, or the perfect filter. She wished she could just disappear, just for a little while, and be someone else. Someone anonymous. Someone whose biggest worry was passing a history exam, not accidentally sabotaging a multi-million-dollar endorsement deal. "I just wish I could be anyone else," she whispered to the empty, echoing apartment, her voice laced with genuine despair. "Anyone but me." It was a crisp autumn evening, bathed in the soft, golden glow of a setting sun. Ethan was walking home from the bookstore, his mind still buzzing with Serafina's latest Instagram story, a carousel of breathtaking photos from a recent trip to Bali. He sighed, kicking at a stray pebble on the sidewalk. Man, what I wouldn't give to live a life like that, just for a day. To wake up as Serafina Thorne. At that very moment, a peculiar energy seemed to ripple through the air. A sudden gust of wind, unseasonably strong, swirled around him, carrying with it the scent of ozone and something faintly floral. A nearby street lamp flickered violently, then settled. Ethan blinked, shaking his head. Must have been the wind. Miles away, Serafina, still sprawled on her sofa, felt an identical surge. The city lights outside her window seemed to shimmer, and a strange, almost electric tingle ran through her body. Her Persian cats, usually aloof, suddenly hissed and arched their backs, their fur standing on end. "Puff? Muffin? What's wrong?" she murmured, trying to calm them. Then, everything went black. Not a literal blackness, but a sudden, dizzying loss of consciousness, as if the world had simply switched off. When Ethan awoke, he wasn't in his modest bed. He was in a bed that felt like a cloud, draped in silk sheets, in a room that smelled faintly of expensive perfume and fresh lilies. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating a walk-in closet that was bigger than his entire apartment. He sat up abruptly, his head spinning. His hands. They were slender, perfectly manicured, adorned with delicate rings he'd never seen before. He looked down at his body, covered by a silk nightgown, and let out a strangled gasp. His chest was different. Significantly so. He scrambled out of bed, catching his reflection in a massive ornate mirror on the wall. Staring back at him was Serafina Thorn. Her luminous eyes, her perfectly sculpted cheekbones, her cascade of glossy, caramel-colored hair. It was undeniably her. It was undeniably him inside her. At the exact same moment, Serafina bolted upright in a bed that felt far too firm, in a room that was starkly unfamiliar. The walls were painted a bland beige, a poster of a vintage sci-fi movie adorned one wall, and a stack of textbooks precariously balanced on a rickety bedside table. She looked down at her hands, calloused, slightly larger, and devoid of any manicure. Panic seized her. She rushed to the small bathroom, her heart pounding against her ribs. In the cheap, slightly stained mirror, a young man with messy brown hair, intelligent but anxious eyes, and a decidedly average physique stared back. A sudden, horrifying realization dawned on her. The face was familiar. She'd seen it pop up in her analytics, a frequent visitor to her profile. It was Ethan, her superfan. A scream tore from Serafina's throat, but it emerged as a distinctly male, slightly reedy sound. Miles away, in Serafina's penthouse, a similar shriek, high-pitched and distinctly feminine, echoed through the luxurious space. Their wishes had been granted. And the universe, in its infinitely mischievous wisdom, had decided to take them literally. The whirlwind had begun. Ethan, now inhabiting the exquisitely beautiful form of Serafina Thorn, stared at his reflection, a whirlwind of disbelief and dawning horror swirling within him. His mind raced, trying to process the impossible. He poked a perfectly manicured finger at the reflection. It poked back. He pinched his arm, her arm, and winced at the very real sensation. This wasn't a dream. This was real. The initial shock quickly gave way to a surge of pure, unadulterated panic. He was Serafina Thorn. The Serafina Thorn. The global phenomenon. What did she do all day? He knew she posted pictures, sure, but what else? How did she walk? How did she talk? He imagined her graceful movements, her confident stride, and then tried to replicate them. He promptly tripped over the silk nightgown, nearly face-planting on the plush carpet. So much for grace. A piercing meow from what sounded like two distinct locations startled him. He looked down to see two fluffy white Persian cats, Puff and Muffin, rubbing against his legs, purring loudly. "Oh, hey guys," he mumbled, his voice sounding strangely melodic and high-pitched to his own ears. He reached down to pet them, feeling the soft, luxurious fur. This was undeniably different. His phone, a sleek device he recognized from her Instagram stories, buzzed on the bedside table. He tentatively picked it up. The screen glowed with dozens of notifications, texts, emails, social media mentions. He scrolled through, his eyes widening. An urgent email from Brenda, Serafina's manager, blared in all caps, "Call me ASAP. Luxe Beauty Scandal. Ethan's blood ran cold. He had no idea what Luxe Beauty Scandal was, let alone how to deal with it. This was way beyond his usual concerns of essay deadlines and shifts at the bookstore. He was an academic, a quiet observer of life, not a high-powered influencer navigating brand crises. He clutched the phone, feeling the weight of Serafina's entire world suddenly pressing down on him. Meanwhile, Serafina, now trapped in Ethan's decidedly ordinary body, was experiencing a different, but equally profound, level of disorientation. She sat on the edge of the twin bed, running her hands through the unfamiliar, slightly coarse hair. This room, Ethan's room, was a stark contrast to her pristine penthouse. Clothes were draped over a chair, books were stacked everywhere, and the faint scent of instant coffee and old paperbacks hung in the air. It was lived in. Authentically so. A novelty for about 5 minutes before the reality of her situation truly hit. Okay, Serafina, deep breaths, she muttered to herself, her voice now a lower, rougher timbre than she was used to. She tried to stand with her usual confident posture, but Ethan's body felt strangely lanky and uncoordinated. She nearly stumbled, catching herself on the bedside table. Goodness, this is going to take some getting used to. Her gaze fell upon a textbook open on the desk, Introduction to Microeconomics. Microeconomics? She hadn't thought about anything remotely academic since her brief, ill-fated stint in college before her social media career took off. There was also a crumpled schedule pinned to a corkboard. Campus Bookstore, Tuesday, February 6 p.m. it read. And beneath it, History of Art Lecture, Wednesday, 10 a.m. A part-time job? Lectures? Her life, for the past 5 years, had revolved around photo shoots, brand meetings, and jet-setting. The idea of clocking in for a minimum wage job or sitting through a lecture about ancient pottery was not just foreign, it was utterly alien. Then she heard it, a faint buzzing sound from the kitchen. It sounded like a microwave. And then, the distinct aroma of instant ramen wafted into the room. Instant ramen. For breakfast? Her typical morning started with a green smoothie meticulously prepared by her personal chef. She found the kitchen a cramped space with a mini fridge and a 2-burner stove, and saw the steaming bowl of noodles. On the counter next to it was a note in Ethan's scrawling handwriting. Don't forget to feed the fish, then library for research paper. Remember micro quiz today. Fish? Research paper? Quiz? Serafina felt a wave of nausea. She had no idea how to feed a fish, let alone write a research paper on microeconomics. Her biggest mental challenge recently had been trying to find a new filter that perfectly captured golden hour glow without looking too artificial. Back in the penthouse, Ethan was attempting to navigate Serafina's walk-in closet. A sea of designer clothes, shoes, and accessories stretched before him. Okay, he whispered, what would Serafina wear to start the day? He picked up a silk robe, then discarded it. Too flimsy. He spotted a pair of designer jeans and a fitted top, clearly expensive. He tried them on. The jeans were impossibly tight, and the top felt daringly revealing. He was used to comfortable hoodies and worn-out t-shirts. He felt exposed, awkward, and completely out of place. He finally settled on a flowy dress that seemed relatively modest, though still far more stylish than anything he owned. He then faced the next hurdle, Serafina's makeup vanity. A glittering array of brushes, palettes, and potions lay before him. He knew she wore makeup, obviously, but how much? How did she get that flawless glow? He tentatively picked up a foundation bottle, then stared blankly at the instructions. Apply evenly with a damp beauty blender. He didn't even know what a beauty blender was. He ended up splashing water on his face, attempting to tame her perfectly styled hair with a comb, and applying a touch of lip balm he found. The result, he suspected, was less effortlessly chic influencer and more deer caught in headlights. His phone buzzed again, this time with a video call from Brenda. Ethan's heart leaped into his throat. He fumbled with the phone, accidentally answering. Brenda's stern face filled the screen. Serafina. Finally. What's going on? You look different. Are you okay? You seem a bit pale. Brenda's sharp eyes narrowed. Did you forget about the charity gala tonight? We need to finalize your outfit and your speech. A charity gala? A speech? Ethan felt faint. He managed a strangled, yes, Brenda. Just a rough morning. His voice cracked slightly. Brenda raised an eyebrow. Rough morning? You sound like you've been gargling gravel. Anyway, I'm sending over the details for the Luxe Beauty damage control. You need to post an apology story immediately, then a series of unboxing videos of their products. And don't forget your Pilates class at 11. Pilates? Damage control? Ethan nodded numbly, his mind reeling. This was a nightmare wrapped in silk and designer labels. Back in Ethan's apartment, Serafina was trying to make sense of his fish. She found a small, murky tank in the living room with one rather sad-looking goldfish. Okay, little guy, she mumbled, how do I feed you? She found a container of fish flakes, sprinkled some in, and watched as the fish ignored them. Great. I'm already failing at basic pet care. Her phone, Ethan's phone, buzzed. It was a text from Mom. Don't forget to call your grandmother, honey. She misses you. And good luck with your micro quiz. Grandmother? Quiz? Serafina felt a wave of intense isolation. Her own family was a distant concept, usually contacted through her assistant for holiday greetings. The warmth and expectation in the text message were overwhelming. She looked at Ethan's cluttered desk, at the textbooks, the half-eaten ramen, the schedule. This was his life. The life of a student, a son, a quiet, diligent young man. It was so utterly, profoundly different from her own. And she had to live it. For how long? She had no idea. The immediate reality was this. Ethan had a history lecture in less than an hour, and Serafina had a Pilates class. Neither had any idea how to be the other. The chaos had well and truly begun. Ethan, in Serafina's body, stood before the mirror, taking a shaky breath. Pilates class. He'd seen Serafina's impossibly flexible poses on her Instagram, but he was about as flexible as a plank of wood. He decided to embrace the just woke up and feeling a little off vibe Brenda had subtly suggested. He threw on a stylish workout set he found in her massive athleisure drawer, praying it wouldn't be too revealing. Walking out of the penthouse, he was immediately met by a sleek black car and a polite driver. Good morning, Miss Thorne. To the studio, the driver asked. Ethan nodded, trying to project an air of nonchalance. Inside the car, he frantically scrolled through Serafina's calendar. Pilates. Followed by a glam squad appointment. Then a fitting for the charity gala. It was a dizzying schedule. At the Pilates studio, the instructor, a woman with a perfectly toned physique and an intimidatingly cheerful smile, greeted Serafina warmly. Serafina, ready for your advanced reformer class? We're focusing on core stability today. Ethan gulped. Advanced reformer? He'd never even seen a reformer before. He tried to mimic the other women in the class, all effortlessly gliding through complex movements. He, however, felt like a bewildered octopus flailing on a torture device. He wobbled, he teetered, he nearly fell off the machine multiple times. He was sure he looked less like a graceful influencer and more like a newborn giraffe attempting ballet. Serafina, darling, remember to engage your transverse abdominis, the instructor chirped, oblivious to Ethan's internal struggle. He just smiled weakly, his muscles screaming in protest. This was going to be a long morning. Meanwhile, Serafina, in Ethan's body, was staring at the lecture hall building on campus, a knot forming in her stomach. History of art. She vaguely remembered something about Renaissance painters from a documentary she'd half-watched once, but that was the extent of her knowledge. She tried to blend in, pulling Ethan's hoodie over her head, but she felt incredibly conspicuous. Her natural poise was at odds with Ethan's slightly hunched posture, creating an awkward, almost comical gait. She found the lecture hall and slipped into a seat at the back, pulling out a notebook and pen. The professor, a distinguished-looking man with a tweed jacket, began discussing ancient Mesopotamian art. Serafina tried to take notes, but her mind kept drifting to her own world. Her manager was probably furious. Her brand deals were hanging in the balance. And here she was, learning about ziggurats. A text buzzed on Ethan's phone from Mark. Hey man, you ready for the micro quiz? We should review the supply and demand curves. Quiz? Micro? Serafina's eyes darted to the person next to her, a young man with a friendly face. Excuse me, she whispered, her new voice still feeling alien. When is this micro quiz? The young man, presumably Mark, looked surprised. Dude, it's literally right after this lecture. You okay? You've been staring at that blank page for 10 minutes. Serafina's heart sank. She had no idea about supply and demand curves. Her curves usually referred to bodycon dresses or perfectly contoured cheekbones, not economic principles. She mumbled an excuse about a headache and tried to pay attention, but the concepts of elasticity and diminishing returns swam before her eyes like an indecipherable foreign language. Back at Serafina's penthouse, Ethan was enduring the glam squad. A team of stylists, makeup artists, and hair professionals descended upon him, transforming him from his awkward self into the image of Serafina Thorne. They meticulously applied layers of foundation, eyeshadow, and contour, styled his hair into perfect waves, and even painted his nails a delicate nude shade. He felt like a mannequin, a canvas on which they were recreating the famous influencer. He watched in the mirror as Serafina's face emerged, flawless and radiant. It was uncanny. He almost believed it himself. Perfect, darling. You look absolutely radiant, the makeup artist declared, stepping back to admire her work. Now, for the outfit fitting. Brenda said the red gown for the gala. Ethan was led to a dressing room where a stunning, form-fitting red gown awaited. It was undeniably beautiful, but also incredibly revealing. He swallowed hard. Is there anything a little less form-fitting? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. The stylist looked at him with a puzzled expression. Less form-fitting? Serafina, honey, this is your brand. You own the red carpet. She helped him into the dress, and Ethan felt a suffocating mix of awe and acute embarrassment. Every curve of Serafina's body was highlighted. He felt utterly exposed, his quiet, introverted self screaming internally. Meanwhile, on campus, Serafina was sitting through the microeconomics quiz, staring blankly at the questions. She tried to guess, scribbling down whatever vaguely economic-sounding terms came to mind. Supply, demand, market forces, capitalism? She knew it was hopeless. She was going to fail Ethan's quiz. She felt a pang of guilt. He seemed like a diligent student. After the lecture, Mark caught up to her. How'd you do, man? Those elasticity questions were tough, huh? Serafina forced a smile. Yeah, super tough. I think I aced it, she tried, hoping he wouldn't notice the tremor in her voice. Mark looked at her skeptically. You sound weird, dude. And you're wearing that hoodie like a disguise. You coming to the library to work on that research paper? Research paper. Right. Serafina had completely forgotten. Oh, not today, Mark. Got a family thing. She quickly walked away, leaving a confused Mark behind. The pressure was immense. She had to pretend to be Ethan, a student with a busy academic life, and she had no idea how to do any of it. Back in Serafina's world, Ethan was at a photo shoot for a new perfume brand. He was posed awkwardly, trying to look alluring and sophisticated while clutching a delicate bottle of fragrance. The photographer barked instructions. Arch your back, Serafina. Gaze seductively at the camera. Show us that inner glow. Ethan tried his best, but his movements were stiff, his smile forced. He felt like a fraud. He missed his comfortable clothes, his quiet corner in the bookstore, his own unglamorous life. He missed being anonymous. The constant scrutiny, the demanding schedule, the pressure to be perfect, it was all overwhelming. He scrolled through Serafina's phone, finding her personal contacts. Dozens of names he didn't recognize, endless group chats about events and collaborations. He paused on one contact, Mom. He wondered if Serafina ever called her own mother. He remembered Ethan's mom's text. A wave of homesickness, for a home that wasn't even his own, washed over him. As the day wore on, both Ethan and Serafina made a series of increasingly hilarious and awkward blunders. Ethan, as Serafina, mistakenly used the wrong brand name in a live story, almost causing another PR disaster. He accidentally ordered a double cheeseburger for lunch instead of Serafina's usual kale salad, earning him a bewildered stare from her assistant. Serafina, as Ethan, nearly set off the fire alarm in the dorm kitchen trying to make toast, and then completely bombed a study group discussion about historical economic theories. By evening, both were utterly exhausted, each having gained a profound, albeit chaotic, new understanding of the other's life. The masquerade was proving to be far more challenging and far less glamorous than either had ever imagined. The chaos of their swapped lives was only just beginning. The charity gala was in full swing. Ethan, clad in the stunning red gown, moved through the glittering ballroom like a deer on ice skates, desperately trying to project Serafina's signature effortless charm. Every smile felt forced, every wave a conscious effort not to trip. He was acutely aware of the eyes on him, the flash of cameras, the hushed whispers, the occasional, frankly unsettling, admiring gazes from strangers. "Serafina, darling, you look absolutely divine," a glamorous woman with a sharp bob exclaimed, air-kissing him on both cheeks. "Such a wonderful cause, isn't it? And your speech was simply captivating." Speech? Ethan's heart pounded. He'd somehow managed to stumble through a pre-written speech provided by Brenda, reading it off his phone in a panic. He hoped his shaky voice had been mistaken for emotion. He was living a waking nightmare of public appearances and polite small talk, yearning for the quiet anonymity of his own life. He tried to engage in conversation, but the topics were entirely foreign. Discussions about cryptocurrency investments, upcoming fashion weeks, and the latest celebrity scandal flew over his head. He found himself nodding vacantly, offering vague affirmations, and clutching a glass of sparkling water for dear life. He was a complete imposter, and he felt it in every fiber of Serafina's expensive gown. Meanwhile, Serafina, in Ethan's body, was navigating a very different kind of social event. A study session in the dorm common room. Ethan's friend, Mark, had practically dragged him there to review for an upcoming history exam. The room smelled of stale pizza and unwashed laundry, a far cry from the opulent scent of lilies and champagne she was used to. "Okay, so for the Ming Dynasty, remember the importance of Zheng He's voyages," Mark lectured, pointing at a map in Ethan's textbook. "And don't forget the Forbidden City's architectural significance." Serafina stared at the textbook, the words blurring before her eyes. Her mind was still reeling from the micro-quiz disaster. She was supposed to be a global influencer, not a history student cramming for an exam. The thought of failing yet another academic task for Ethan filled her with a strange sense of responsibility, mixed with exasperation. "Can we take a break?" she finally blurted out, startling Mark. "I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed by the dynasties." Mark looked at her concerned. "Dude, you've been off all week. First the micro-quiz, now this. Is everything okay?" Serafina sighed. "Honestly, Mark, no. Everything is definitely not okay." She wished she could confide in him, tell him the absurd truth, but who would ever believe her? Later that evening, back in the relative peace of Ethan's dorm room, Serafina tried to tackle the research paper. The topic was the economic impact of early industrialization. She opened Ethan's laptop, only to be confronted with a barrage of academic articles and complex graphs. She tried to read, but her attention span, honed by years of scrolling through short-form content, rebelled. She found herself gravitating towards social media, a familiar comfort. But it wasn't her account, it was Ethan's, a far more subdued profile. His feed was a mix of university announcements, gaming memes, and, to her surprise, posts from her own accounts. He was indeed her biggest fan. She saw his likes, his occasional thoughtful comments on her posts, always respectful, always admiring. A strange feeling washed over her. She saw herself through his eyes, a dazzling, untouchable star. But she knew the truth behind the glamour. The endless work, the fabricated perfection, the crushing pressure. She suddenly felt a pang of empathy for him, for his idealized view of her life, a view she herself had meticulously crafted. Meanwhile, Ethan, having escaped the gala, was back in Serafina's penthouse, utterly drained. He collapsed onto the plush sofa, still in the gown, too exhausted to even change. He picked up Serafina's phone, intending to just scroll idly, but a notification caught his eye. It was from a new influencer app, asking for Serafina Thorne's daily insights. He clicked on it and saw a detailed dashboard of her social media metrics, follower growth, engagement rates, brand mentions, even a monetization report. The numbers were staggering. Millions of followers, hundreds of thousands of likes, and revenue figures that made his bookstore wages seem like pocket change. He scrolled through her direct messages. There were hundreds from fans, from brands, from other influencers. He saw messages from young girls expressing how much Serafina inspired them, messages from brands offering lucrative partnerships, and messages from friends inviting her to exclusive events. He also saw the dark side. Hateful comments, relentless criticism, body shaming. He found a recent string of comments on one of her photos, dissecting her appearance, questioning her authenticity. He felt a wave of anger and protectiveness on her behalf. This was the price of her fame. It wasn't just glamour, it was a constant battle against judgment and negativity. A thought struck him. Serafina was supposed to post a daily vlog update by midnight. He had no idea what to say. He nervously opened the camera app. He tried to mimic her confident, effervescent persona, but it felt inauthentic. He ended up recording a short, slightly awkward message about having a busy day and looking forward to tomorrow, hoping it would pass muster. It lacked Serafina's usual sparkle, but he was too tired to care. Back in Ethan's room, Serafina felt a sudden pang of hunger. She rifled through his small pantry, finding only instant noodles and cereal. She remembered her personal chef, her meticulously planned organic meals. This was a rude awakening. She decided to venture out, pulling on Ethan's worn-out sneakers. She walked past the bustling campus food court, filled with students laughing and chatting. It was a stark contrast to the exclusive restaurants and private parties she frequented. She found herself drawn to a small, brightly lit pizza place, the kind she would never normally step foot in. She ordered a slice of pepperoni, and as she sat there, eating the greasy, delicious pizza, she felt a strange sense of liberation. No one was watching her. No one was judging her outfit or her calorie intake. She was just a student eating pizza. It was a simple, profound freedom. As the night deepened, both Ethan and Serafina lay in their swapped beds, staring at the unfamiliar ceilings. Ethan, surrounded by luxury, felt a suffocating loneliness. Serafina, surrounded by simplicity, felt an unexpected lightness. They were living each other's lives, and the experience was rapidly dismantling their preconceived notions. Ethan saw the immense pressure, the constant scrutiny, and the digital demands that Serafina faced. Serafina saw the quiet diligence, the academic struggles, and the genuine connections of Ethan's world. The glamour and the mundanity had both been exposed, revealing layers of complexity neither had anticipated. The comedic mishaps of the day had been underscored by moments of genuine revelation. The masquerade was far more than just funny, it was a profound lesson in perspective. And their understanding of each other, despite the physical distance, was growing with every awkward step they took in the other's shoes. Days bled into a week, then two, each one a relentless lesson in adaptation for both Ethan and Serafina. The initial chaos had settled into a strange, uneasy rhythm, punctuated by continuous blunders and surprising discoveries. Ethan, as Serafina, was slowly, painstakingly, learning the ropes of being an influencer. He discovered Serafina had an entire team of assistants and editors who handled much of the behind-the-scenes work. His job was primarily to be Serafina, to pose, to smile, to embody the brand. He still hated the Pilates, but he'd found an unexpected knack for choosing aesthetically pleasing backdrops for photos. His academic eye, trained to spot patterns and composition, helped him arrange objects for shelfies and choose flattering angles for outfit posts. Brenda, Serafina's manager, was still a terrifying force, but Ethan was learning to navigate her demands. He'd even managed to pull off a spontaneous cooking video for a food brand, albeit with a lot of frantic Googling of recipes and some very nervous chopping. The comments section, to his surprise, was filled with positive feedback. "Serafina, you're so relatable," one fan wrote. "Love this down-to-earth vibe," another chimed in. Ethan couldn't help but feel a tiny spark of pride. He was making Serafina relatable, in a way. However, the constant social demands were still his biggest challenge. He attended exclusive parties, fashion shows, and product launches, always feeling like he was playing a part. He yearned for meaningful conversations, but most interactions felt superficial, revolving around follower counts and brand sponsorships. One evening, at a high-profile fashion event, Ethan found himself cornered by a renowned fashion blogger known for her biting commentary. "Serafina, darling," she purred, eyeing Serafina's outfit critically. "Your latest collection seems to be leaning rather experimental. A bold choice for your demographic, wouldn't you say?" Ethan's mind raced. He had no idea what her latest collection was, or what her demographic preferred. He took a deep breath, drawing on a reserve of confidence he didn't know he possessed. "I believe," he began, adopting a slightly more thoughtful, less effusive tone than Serafina's usual, "that true style lies in evolving, in pushing boundaries while staying true to one's authentic vision. Sometimes, that means challenging expectations and inviting a fresh perspective." The blogger paused, a flicker of surprise in her eyes. Interesting. A rather philosophical take for a Tuesday night. She studied him for a moment longer, then, to Ethan's astonishment, actually smiled. "I like it. A new direction, perhaps." Ethan felt a thrill. He hadn't just fumbled through it, he'd actually responded thoughtfully, using his own analytical mind. Maybe, just maybe, he could be more than just a stand-in. Meanwhile, Serafina, in Ethan's body, was facing her own set of trials. She quickly realized how much effort Ethan put into his studies. The workload was immense, the concepts often dry, but she found herself slowly, surprisingly, enjoying the challenge. She was no longer just memorizing, she was starting to understand. She still bombed the microeconomics quiz, but after a frank conversation with Mark, he'd offered to tutor him. As they worked through complex equations and historical texts, Serafina found herself asking insightful questions, sometimes drawing parallels between economic principles and the business side of her own influencer career. Mark, initially surprised by Ethan's sudden engagement, was impressed. "You know, Ethan," Mark said one afternoon in the library, "you're actually pretty good at connecting these theories to real-world stuff. You should consider a business minor." Serafina blinked. A business minor? She'd always dismissed her career as just social media, but she was realizing it was a business, a complex one. She felt a surge of respect for Ethan's natural intellect and a growing appreciation for the foundational knowledge she was now acquiring. Her biggest struggle, however, was Ethan's part-time job at the campus bookstore. She, who was used to signing autographs, now had to shelve books, assist demanding customers, and operate a finicky cash register. She'd accidentally given a student the wrong change twice, and once nearly dropped an entire stack of priceless first editions. One afternoon, a young girl, probably a freshman, approached the counter with a stack of fantasy novels. "Excuse me," she said, her voice timid, "do you think this series is good?" "I'm trying to find something to escape into." Serafina, about to give a dismissive answer, suddenly paused. She remembered Ethan's quiet passion for books, the way he'd lose himself in stories. She looked at the girl's hopeful face, and something shifted within her. "Yes," she said, surprising herself. "This series is wonderful. It builds an incredible world. If you're looking to escape, this will definitely take you there." She even offered a small, genuine smile. The girl beamed, thanked him, and left. Serafina felt a strange, warm sensation in her chest. It was different from the fleeting high of 1,000 likes. It felt real. One night, Serafina, after a particularly grueling day of lectures and library work, found herself staring at Ethan's phone again. She clicked on her own profile. There she was, Serafina Thorne, smiling effortlessly at a gala. She read the comments, some praising her beauty, others dissecting her every move. She saw the vlog update Ethan had posted, noting how much more subdued it was than her usual content. She also saw the uptick in relatable comments. A faint, almost imperceptible frown creased her brow. Had she been too much? Too perfect? Back in the penthouse, Ethan, also after a long day of pretending to be Serafina, was scrolling through Ethan's phone. He saw the messages from Mark, the study group invites, the campus events. He saw the worried texts from Ethan's mom. He felt a pang of guilt. He wasn't calling her, he wasn't studying, he wasn't doing any of the things Ethan should be doing. He saw the picture of himself, Ethan, that Serafina had posted on her story, a slightly blurry shot from the bookstore. The caption was simple, quiet moments. It was unexpected, unglamorous, and yet it resonated. Serafina, in his body, was seeing the beauty in his quiet life. He felt a strange connection, a thread stretching across their swapped realities. He remembered her manager Brenda's relentless pressure, the constant demands for perfection, the endless stream of public judgment. He understood now why Serafina craved a break, why she'd wished to be someone else. Her life was a gilded cage, beautiful on the outside, but suffocating within. That night, both of them, in their borrowed bodies, felt a shift. Ethan understood the immense pressure Serafina faced, the exhausting performance required to maintain her image. He saw the vulnerability beneath the glamour. Serafina understood the quiet dignity of Ethan's life, the genuine intellectual curiosity, and the simple joys of anonymity. She saw the depth beneath the perceived ordinariness. They were no longer just observers of each other's lives, but active participants, learning, growing, and inadvertently showing each other new facets of themselves they hadn't known existed. The mishaps continued, but they were now tinged with a deeper understanding, paving the way for something more profound than just comedy. They were beginning to see each other, truly see each other, for the first time. The longer the body swap lasted, the more both Ethan and Serafina found themselves having to confront situations that directly challenged their own personalities. This led to a series of hilarious and sometimes uncomfortable encounters. One afternoon, Ethan, as Serafina, was at a brand meeting for a new sustainable fashion line. Brenda was there, naturally, along with a team of designers and marketing executives. The head designer presented a collection that was undeniably chic, but Ethan, with his newfound perspective on authenticity, couldn't help but notice the disconnect. The clothes were made from supposedly eco-friendly materials, but the entire production process seemed incredibly wasteful, and the marketing spiel felt disingenuous. Normally, Serafina would simply smile, nod, and promote whatever was put in front of her. But Ethan, channeling his inner academic integrity, felt a strong urge to speak up. "Excuse me," he said, his voice, Serafina's voice, cutting through the polished presentation. "While the designs are beautiful, I'm a little concerned about the actual sustainability claims. How transparent are we being with our audience about the production chain and waste management?" A stunned silence fell over the room. Brenda shot him a furious glare. The head designer looked affronted. "Ms. Thorne, we assure you, our claims are entirely within industry standards," the designer stammered. Ethan pressed on. "Industry standards, perhaps. But what about the expectations of an increasingly informed consumer base? My followers, our followers, value authenticity. If we're going to promote sustainable, we need to truly be sustainable, not just market it." Brenda quickly interjected, steering the conversation away, but the seed was planted. Later, Brenda pulled him aside, her voice low and menacing. "Serafina, what was that? Are you trying to tank this deal? We don't question the brands, we promote them." Ethan, surprisingly, didn't back down. "Brenda, if the brand isn't genuinely sustainable, then my promoting it is disingenuous. And that hurts my brand, Serafina Thorne's brand, in the long run. My integrity is important." Brenda stared, utterly bewildered. This was not the pliable, image-conscious Serafina she knew. There was a quiet conviction in her eyes that Brenda had never seen before. It was unnerving. Meanwhile, Serafina, in Ethan's body, was having her own confrontations. Ethan's ex-girlfriend, Chloe, a bubbly and somewhat clingy art history student, suddenly reappeared, wanting to talk things over. Serafina, who usually dealt with exes by blocking them, found herself in an awkward coffee shop encounter. "Ethan, I just feel like we never got closure," Chloe lamented, stirring her latte. "And you've been so weird lately. Distant. Is there someone else?" Serafina, who had absolutely no interest in discussing Ethan's past relationships, struggled to find the right words. Her usual approach would be a curt dismissal, but she knew Ethan wouldn't do that. She tried to channel what she imagined Ethan's gentle, slightly awkward demeanor would be. "Chloe, I understand you feel that way," Serafina said, trying to make her, Ethan's, voice sound empathetic. "But sometimes, people just grow apart. And I'm going through a lot right now. A lot of changes." Chloe looked at him skeptically. "Changes? You mean like suddenly becoming a complete bore who only talks about Mesopotamia?" Serafina bristled internally. "Look, Chloe, I think it's best if we just move on," she said, finally resorting to a more direct, Serafina-like approach, albeit delivered in Ethan's hesitant voice. She quickly made an excuse and left, leaving a bewildered Chloe behind. The experience solidified her understanding of how much emotional energy Ethan put into navigating his relationships. One evening, Mark came over to Ethan's dorm room, looking troubled. "Dude, I heard Chloe's been talking. Said you dumped her in a really cold way. And that you're acting like a completely different person." Serafina sighed, running a hand through Ethan's messy hair. "Mark, I can't explain it right now. But I promise you I'm still me. Just a slightly altered version." She looked at Mark, a genuine friend. "I'm sorry if I've been weird. It's just a lot to process." Mark, ever the loyal friend, just nodded. "Hey, as long as you're okay. And you actually helped me understand that obscure economic theory today, so I'm not complaining." He grinned. As they continued to live each other's lives, both Ethan and Serafina began to reveal vulnerabilities they rarely, if ever, showed to the world. Ethan, as Serafina, found himself posting a more candid Instagram story one day. Instead of a perfectly filtered selfie, he posted a photo of his, Serafina's, apartment in a slightly messy state, with Puff and Muffin tangled in a yarn ball. The caption read, "Sometimes, even the most perfect lives have a little delightful chaos. And a lot of cat hair." The response was overwhelming. Fans loved the authenticity. Finally, a real glimpse. "You're just like us," the comments poured in. Ethan realized that people craved connection, not just perfection. He was subtly, unknowingly, reshaping Serafina's public image. Serafina, in Ethan's body, found herself drawn to the local animal shelter where Ethan used to volunteer. She started spending a few hours there each week, helping with the cats and dogs. She, who was used to being adored by millions, found profound comfort in the simple, unconditional affection of the animals. She even helped nurse a shy, injured kitten back to health, something she never would have imagined herself doing. The physical act of caring, of being needed in a genuine way, filled a void she hadn't known she had. One rainy afternoon, she was at the shelter, covered in cat hair and mud from playing with puppies. Her phone, Ethan's phone, buzzed. It was a text from Ethan's mom, "Just calling to say I love you, honey. Hope your studies are going well. Don't forget to eat properly." A wave of emotion washed over Serafina. She looked at the text, then at the happy, purring kitten in her arms. She picked up the phone and, for the first time since the swap, made a genuine, heartfelt phone call to Ethan's mother. She talked about his studies, about his friends, even about the goldfish. She fabricated stories, of course, but the warmth and love in Ethan's mother's voice were real. And Serafina, the girl who had always kept everyone at arm's length, felt a surprising sense of connection and longing for that kind of unconditional affection in her own life. Both were stepping out of their comfort zones, pushed by the circumstances, revealing facets of themselves they'd kept hidden, even from themselves. The confrontations they faced, whether with a demanding manager or a persistent ex, were forcing them to grow. And in the quiet moments of vulnerability, they were both beginning to understand the true essence of the person whose life they were inhabiting, and in doing so, gaining a deeper understanding of themselves. The swap was teaching them profound lessons, far beyond the initial comedic premise. The world continued to turn, oblivious to the extraordinary predicament of Ethan and Serafina. But as weeks turned into a month, then two, an unsettling feeling began to creep in. The initial shock had worn off, replaced by a deep-seated anxiety. What if this was permanent? Ethan, as Serafina, was becoming remarkably adept at the influencer game. He'd refined Serafina's online persona, injecting more authentic, thoughtful content. Her engagement numbers were up, her brand deals were stronger, and even Brenda, though still formidable, grudgingly admitted that Serafina was showing a surprising new edge. He'd even learned to apply makeup with a surprising degree of skill. Yet, the constant performance was exhausting. He missed his books, his quiet evenings, and the genuine intellectual stimulation of his studies. He missed being Ethan. One night, while scrolling through Serafina's private journal app, he'd found the password in her desk. Figuring it was fair game given their situation, he read an entry that struck him to the core. Serafina had written about feeling like a fraud, about the loneliness of always being on, and about her deepest desire for a life of real connection, not just followers. She even mused about wanting to pursue a passion for photography, something she'd put aside for her influencer career. Ethan felt a profound empathy. He recognized her yearning for authenticity, a mirror of his own. Meanwhile, Serafina, in Ethan's body, had not only caught up on all his coursework but was excelling. She'd even helped Mark and other study group members understand complex theories. She found a genuine joy in learning and the satisfaction of intellectual achievement, something she'd never truly experienced before. The campus bookstore job, while still not her passion, had become bearable, even a source of small, satisfying interactions. She appreciated the routine, the lack of pretense. One day, while volunteering at the animal shelter, she encountered a small, scruffy stray dog that reminded her of a neglected pet she'd had as a child before her family moved to a more affluent but emotionally colder environment. As she comforted the trembling dog, she found herself opening up to one of the older volunteers, a kind woman named Mrs. Henderson. She spoke, vaguely, about feeling lost, about an identity crisis, about wishing she could be truly free. Mrs. Henderson, without knowing the full truth, simply listened and offered quiet wisdom. Sometimes, she said, we need to step away from what everyone expects of us to find out who we truly are. Serafina felt a warmth spread through her. The most unnerving development, however, was a series of increasingly strange occurrences. Lights would flicker inexplicably in both their locations. Electronic devices would glitch and then reset. Both experienced moments of intense déjà vu, as if catching glimpses of the other's day. It was subtle at first, but it was growing stronger. One morning, Ethan, as Serafina, was attempting a particularly complicated yoga pose for a sponsored post when a sudden, sharp jolt went through him. He gasped, dropping to the mat. At the exact same moment, Serafina, in Ethan's body, was in the middle of a history lecture when her hand involuntarily shot up, as if reaching for something. She quickly lowered it, looking around self-consciously. The professor paused, looking at her quizzically. The glitches were increasing. They felt like tiny tremors in the fabric of their swapped realities, hints that something was about to give. One rainy evening, both Ethan and Serafina, independently, reached a breaking point. Ethan was alone in Serafina's vast penthouse, staring out at the gleaming city lights. He had just finished a video call with a major fashion magazine, pretending to be utterly thrilled about a cover shoot. He hung up and the facade crumbled. He felt overwhelmed, exhausted by the charade. He missed his own bed, his own clothes, his own quiet life, even its perceived monotony. He missed himself. I can't do this anymore, he whispered into the opulent silence. I just want to go home. I want to be Ethan again. He closed his eyes, a desperate plea forming on his lips. Please, universe, just let us switch back. At the very same moment, Serafina was sitting on Ethan's worn desk chair, surrounded by his textbooks. She had just received an email notification about an upcoming exam, a final paper for his toughest class. She felt a wave of anxiety, but also a strange sense of determination. She had worked so hard to catch up for him. She had discovered a love for learning, a satisfaction in genuine achievement that transcended follower counts. She liked the quiet rhythm of his life, the realness of his friendships. But she also knew this wasn't her life. She missed her own body, her own clothes, her own cats. She even, surprisingly, missed the creative aspect of her old job, albeit without the relentless pressure. She wanted her life back, but changed. A better version of her life, informed by Ethan's grounded perspective. "I need to go back," she murmured, a tear tracing a path down Ethan's cheek. "I've learned so much. But it's time to be me again. Please, let us switch back." As if in response to their simultaneous, heartfelt pleas, the strange energy that had enveloped them on the day of the swap returned. In Serafina's penthouse, the lights flickered wildly, the sound system crackled, and a sudden, intense chill swept through the room. Ethan felt a powerful surge, a dizzying sensation of being pulled and twisted, as if through a cosmic vortex. In Ethan's dorm room, his laptop screen went blank, then displayed a kaleidoscope of colors. The overhead lights swung erratically, and Serafina felt an identical, overwhelming force, a feeling of being stretched and spun. Puff and Muffin, far away in Serafina's apartment, suddenly let out a chorus of distressed meows, and Ethan's goldfish darted frantically in its tank. Then, just as suddenly as it began, it stopped. The lights settled. The electronics hummed normally. The air was still. Ethan blinked. He was lying on the floor of what was unmistakably his dorm room. He scrambled up, heart pounding. He looked down at his hands. They were his hands. Slightly larger, calloused, familiar. He ran to the small bathroom and peered into the mirror. Staring back at him was his own face. Ethan's face. Messy brown hair, slightly anxious eyes. He was himself again. At the exact same time, Serafina sat up on her plush velvet sofa, her head reeling. She looked down at her slender, perfectly manicured hands, adorned with delicate rings. She ran to her full-length mirror. Serafina Thorne stared back. Her luminous eyes, her perfectly sculpted cheekbones, her cascade of glossy, caramel-colored hair. She was back in her own body. Both let out a simultaneous, shaky breath, a mix of relief, disbelief, and an overwhelming sense of wonder. The world had righted itself. They were back. But they were not the same. Each carried the imprint of the other's life, a shared secret that had irrevocably changed them. They had both walked a mile in the other's shoes, and the journey had reshaped their souls in ways they could barely comprehend. The true meaning of empathy, of walking in another's shoes, had been revealed. The universe, it seemed, had a mischievous, yet profoundly insightful, way of granting wishes. The immediate aftermath of the switch was a whirlwind of relief and disorientation. Ethan spent the first few hours touching everything in his room, marveling at the mundane familiarity of his own belongings. He called his mom, just to hear her voice and reassure himself that he was him. He even checked on his goldfish, who seemed utterly oblivious to the cosmic drama it had just witnessed. He quickly logged into his university portal, relieved to see his own name, his own schedule, his own grades. He had a history paper due, and to his astonishment, the draft on his laptop was nearly complete, full of insightful analysis and well-researched points he knew he hadn't written. Serafina had not only done his homework, she had excelled at it. A wave of profound gratitude washed over him. Across town, Serafina was experiencing her own re-entry. She luxuriated in the feel of her silk sheets, the scent of her expensive perfume, the soft purrs of Puff and Muffin rubbing against her legs. She called Brenda, bracing herself for the usual barrage of demands. But this time, Serafina felt a new sense of resolve. "Brenda," she said, her voice clear and steady, "I need to make some changes to my schedule and my brand strategy." Brenda, shocked by Serafina's newfound assertiveness, listened as Serafina laid out her vision, Fewer brand partnerships, more emphasis on authentic content, a dedication to causes she genuinely believed in, like animal welfare and sustainable fashion. She even mentioned wanting to explore photography, not just as an influencer, but as an artist. Brenda, ever the businesswoman, initially resisted, but Serafina's conviction was unwavering. "I'm not going to be just a pretty face promoting products anymore, Brenda," Serafina stated. "I'm going to use my platform for something more meaningful. And if you're not on board, I understand, but this is the direction I'm taking." Faced with Serafina's uncharacteristic firmness, Brenda, seeing the potential for a new, more engaged Serafina Thorne, finally conceded, albeit with a few grumbles. That evening, a text popped up on Ethan's phone from an unknown number. "It's Serafina. We need to talk." Ethan's heart leaped. He typed back, "Where?" They met at a small, unassuming coffee shop, far from the paparazzi and bustling campus. When Serafina walked in, Ethan almost didn't recognize her. She was dressed simply, in jeans and a plain sweater, with minimal makeup. Her usual aura of untouchable glamour was replaced by a quiet thoughtfulness, a vulnerability he hadn't seen before. "Ethan," Serafina began, her voice soft, "thank you. For everything. For keeping my life somewhat together." She paused, a genuine smile gracing her lips. "You actually made my content better. And you taught Brenda a thing or two about authenticity." Ethan blushed. "And you, Serafina," he replied, "you didn't just keep my life together, you improved it. My grades, my research paper. I don't know how to thank you." He hesitated. "And the goldfish is still alive. That's a miracle." Serafina laughed, a genuine, uninhibited sound. "Your mom called me. She's wonderful. And your friends. Mark is a great guy." She took a sip of her coffee. "Living your life, Ethan, I realized how much I missed having real connections, real challenges that weren't just about my image. And how much pressure I put on myself to be perfect." Ethan nodded. "And living yours, I saw the other side of the glamour. The constant work, the judgment, the loneliness. It's a lot." He looked at her, truly seeing her, not just the influencer, but the person. "You're really smart, Serafina. And you have a good heart. The way you helped that kitten at the shelter." Serafina's eyes widened slightly. "You know about that?" Ethan smiled. "Yeah, I was there. In your body. In your mind, I guess." A comfortable silence fell between them, a shared understanding that transcended words. They had seen each other's deepest fears and quietest strengths. They had walked in each other's shoes, literally, and had emerged changed. "I've decided to quit OnlyFans," Serafina said suddenly, breaking the silence. "It was never really about the money, not anymore. It was about validation, I think. But now, I want to create, not just perform. I'm going to focus on my photography and use my platform to advocate for things I truly care about." Ethan's eyes lit up. "That's incredible, Serafina. I think that's amazing." "And you, Ethan?" Serafina asked, a curious glint in her eye. "What are your plans now?" Ethan chuckled. "Well, I definitely need to pass my history final, thanks to you. And maybe I'll finally start that blog I've always thought about literature and philosophy. And maybe volunteer at the animal shelter again." They talked for hours, sharing stories of their swapped lives, the mishaps, the insights, the humor, and the quiet moments of revelation. They discovered a mutual respect, a genuine fondness, and an undeniable connection that had blossomed from the most extraordinary circumstances. As the coffee shop began to close, they stood outside, the city lights twinkling around them. "I never thought I'd say this," Serafina said, looking up at him. He was still a little taller than her, even in her own body. "But thank you for being my biggest fan, Ethan. It turns out, I needed a little bit of your grounded reality." Ethan smiled, a genuine, confident smile. "And I never thought I'd say this," he replied, "but thank you for showing me what it's like to truly shine, Serafina. And for teaching me that there's more to life than just textbooks." As they parted ways that night, a new chapter began for both of them. Serafina Thorne transformed her online presence, becoming a more authentic, socially conscious influencer and a passionate photographer. Her content resonated even more deeply with her audience, who appreciated her honesty and her journey. She found true fulfillment in her work and in the genuine connections she made. Ethan, empowered by his experience, not only excelled in his studies, but also launched his blog, which slowly gained a following for its thoughtful insights. He continued volunteering at the animal shelter and, crucially, started dating again, now with a newfound confidence and understanding of human connection. Their paths, once intertwined by magic, continued to cross. They became genuine friends, confidants who understood each other's unique perspectives like no one else could. They supported each other's new endeavors, celebrated each other's successes, and offered comfort during challenges. And as for coming together romantically, well, the universe had played a grand joke on them, bringing them together in the most unexpected way. They had seen each other at their most vulnerable, their most awkward, and their most authentic. The initial fan and star dynamic had dissolved, replaced by a deep friendship and mutual respect. One day, months later, as they walked through a park, laughing about a particularly embarrassing memory from their swapped lives, Ethan found himself reaching for Serafina's hand. She squeezed it gently. No grand declarations, no dramatic confessions. Just a quiet, comfortable connection, built on shared experience, profound understanding, and the knowledge that sometimes the most magical transformations begin with a simple wish and a chaotic, life-changing body swap. They had found not just love, but a partnership, built on seeing each other for who they truly were, beyond the facades, beyond the screens, and beyond the wildest dreams of a fan and a star.